got into cycling really through sort of seeing a programme on, I think it was Saturday morning. It was an American series called Breaking Away. And it was about 3 pals, and one of them was a cyclist. He actually thought he was Italian. And I used to watch this every Saturday morning. And I had a racing bike that were in my garage with straight bars on it at that time, because I'd taken the racing bars off it and put cowl ones on it, which were the trend in early 80s. I used to ride around I lived in Mexborough, so I used to go out and sort of find the countryside around Mexborough, Adwick and them sort of areas and just basically explore on my bike. It was just my way of seeing things that I wouldn't have seen if I didn't ride a bike. That's why I ride a bike, and that's why I still ride a bike now, nearly 40 years later.
Basically been my life since I was 14 or 15. Yeah, I did have a brief period on motorbikes in the 60s, but like most people do. But I always came back to cycling. You know, I can't imagine now. I mean, I'm 74 now. I can't imagine not going out on my bike. It just becomes a way of life. Last Sunday, I went to meet some old friends at Old Coast, the yard centre at Old Coast, and there's some people there you just cannot comprehend. There's one chap, they call him Sid Wilson, and Sid rode the Tour of Britain in the 50s. He's now 90, and that morning he'd rode over from Mossborough in Sheffield on his racing bike, and he still looks quite sprightly.
I started cycling really when I was about 14-year-old. A very good friend at school who turned out to be one of the best riders in the country, if not Europe. John Tanner was one of my close school friends. He encouraged me to come along with him on some Sunday rides, which I joined him, and the rest to say is history really. Me and John went through quite a few good Sunday rides, starting off with the Doncaster section of the Cyclist Touring Club, which gave us the ambition to really enjoy cycling and travel and freedom more than anything. As a 14-year-old, having a bike to be able to go where you wanted, when you wanted, more or less, was a massive coup in them days. So both John and myself, we did lots of cycling in that kind of era.
Basically, 10-year-old Christmas present, got a racer, and then there were a family, Platt's family, that lived down on the same street. They used to go out on, for day rides on a Sunday. Basically started tagging on with them. They were in the CTC touring club. Got into touring with them. Once you'd done that first ride, you were there were no looking back. You can just get on your bike and go places. When you're a schoolboy, or you haven't got any cars or anything. One of the early memories is riding over to Nottingham because we couldn't get a lift anywhere. So we rode to Nottingham, did the race and come back. I don't think we did anything in the race, but we had a good day. It took a long time to have any success. We probably had about 10 years or so at a decent level. National champion twice on the road, national champion, criterion. I went to Olympics in 96 to Atlanta, and then Sydney 2000, highlight really of my career.
Got to the pinnacle of my personal career, was racing in Belgium. Realised I'd got as far as I could really, within the restraints of training and racing, and took a step backwards and then started the bike shop up in '94. Since then, been in business, followed cycling, still competitive in the early years, not so much now, but it certainly has been a major part of my life, as cycling in general, business and pleasure. So yeah, really enjoyed the 25 years or so that I've been doing this for, yeah.
I could ride my bike from 3 with no stabilisers, and then from there, 25 years ago, you could ride around your cul-de-sac and not have a care in the world. And then just going from there really, just found the bike as freedom, and riding from Rosington, where I grew up, over to Lango Lake on my BMX, and it was just that sense of freedom. You could take yourself, you didn't have to rely on your parents to take you anywhere, and yeah, just get on your BMX and find some friends and have a ride over to a place and get a drink and then have a mess around and then ride back.
Cycling means to me just being free, you know, you're just out on the road, you're on a bike that you're powering yourself, there's no engine or anything like that, you can choose how fast you want to go on the bike, you suffer up a hill, you get to enjoy the downhill, just the speed and yeah, just the wind and being outside, especially when it's a real nice day, it's yeah, nothing beats it. And then if you think of the bad days that you do on the bike as well, you might be hating it at the time, but when you get back you're like, oh, that was epic. And yeah, it's just great.
Now that's interesting. That's me on floor there. That's in Mallorca. And I crashed with, how many laps to go? I crashed in the last 3 laps, so they wouldn't let you have a lap out. It was in the middle of Palma. And that photographer was smack on Mark, weren't he, where he took the picture. So what I did, I got up really quick and then I chased after them and I caught them in the last 200 metres, and I think I finished 12th, and there were 150 riders in that race. Now had I not crashed, I think I'd have been top 3 that day. But that guy there won every stage. He was incredible, the Dutch rider, Van Kessel and Van Bavel. Yeah, but 2 of my teammates finished, you know, like 6th. Gordon Hill, that's him who used to sponsor the club. Ken Cowdell, he was with us that day in the British team, and then myself. But yeah, it was brilliant. My name's Dave Marsh, owner of Universal Cycle Centre in Maltby. I've been involved in cycling most of my life from being 8 years old. My dad, Joe Marsh Senior, ran a cycling club at the Dinnington Road and Path, as it was known back then. I remember my dad setting up the club, which had been defunct for about 5 years. So 1960, he was taking us out on the bike at such a young age. I thought it was as early as 8, but my brother tells me I was 10 years old. And I used to pester my dad week in, week out, can I come with you? Until eventually he said, right, here you are, we're going to Newark today, or just on the outskirts of Newark, a place called Balderton. So we set off. En route, I think I punctured twice going out. We stayed at a cafe. It was about a 30-mile ride each way. On the way back, we were about a mile from home, and I punctured again. And so that's my first memory of actually going out on a club run when I was about 10 years of age. So I was into cycling at such an early age, and all through that early part of the 60s, I used to follow one rider in particular, who was a local rider that had gone to live and race abroad, called Tom Simpson. He just oozed class, you know. We thought we're what we were on a bike, but nothing to the quality of Tom Simpson, and even today there aren't many that have achieved what he did.
This is one of his Peugeot team jerseys from when he was a professional. He was with the Peugeot team from 1963 until he died. And there's a Great Britain jersey that he rode in the World Championships. We've got a bike there that was, we think it was for him, it was one of the spare bikes from one of the Peugeot team cars from the roof, but it's his size and everything, so we think that one was his. There's a World Champions rainbow jersey. That's the jersey that you can wear for a year when you've won the World Championships to signify that you're the reigning world champion. We've got a tracksuit from his first professional team, San Rafael. Down here are his tracksuit badges from the Olympic Games in 1956 and the Commonwealth Games in 1958. And Very sad one there. Number 49 is the actual number from his bike that he died on stage 13 of the Tour of France. And that page of the road manual is turned onto that page the 13th of July 1967. And here, this was given to us by the British team mechanic Harry Hall. It's the gear ratios that he put on Tom's bike for the Ventoux stage. He just sliced through where no British cyclist had ever been. 1961 he'd won the Tour of Flanders, which no British cyclist has ever won since, not even been on the podium. And he was only 23 when he won that. 1963 he won Bordeaux-Paris race. In 1964 Milan-San Remo, another monument. And then in 1965 he was the first British cyclist to win the World Professional Road Race Championships. And only Mark Cavendish has won that since. He also won another monument, Il Lombardia, while wearing the rainbow jersey of world champion. And he just carried on winning. In 1967, with the British team in the Tour of France, who were backing him, he decided he was going to have a really good go at the Tour of France. He won the early season stage race Paris-Nice, beating Eddy Merckx, the young Eddy Merckx. He was the greatest cyclist ever. Everybody accepts that now. And he was doing well in the Tour of France. And by the time they got to stage 11, which went through the Alps, and at that time he went down with a stomach bug. He was quite ill. He was sick during the ride, sick during the stage. Couldn't keep anything down. He must have thought, at stage 30, stage 11 was a flat one to Marseille, and stage 13 was from Marseille to Carpentras, which went over Mont Ventoux. After that, there would have been a rest day, and although the team and friends were telling him to stop, he carried on. He must have thought, well, maybe if I can get to the rest day, I can recover. He wasn't eating any solids at that time. He could only be fed with a glucose drip. The Italian team doctor was looking after him. And on the stage of the Ventoux, he just tried to keep with them, keep with the leaders. Instead of maybe losing a bit of time and stopping in the back group, he tried to stay with the leaders, which is what he would do. It's the only way he knew to race. I had to hang on. And in his dehydrated condition, it collapsed about a mile from the summit of the Ventoux, and he died there. Tom's is famous still today, not just because of us and the Memorial Fund, is because of what he did and how he's inspired other British cyclists. So he stands on his own reputation, but I think also who he was. Everybody in Europe, if you talk to I've just wrote a book about Tom, and I spoke to a lot of people he raced against. And it's always the same, Tommy, he was special. I've had guys who won the Tour of France in tears. One cyclist, Jan Janssen, who won the Tour of France in 1968, said that there isn't a day goes by, only a couple of years ago he said this, where he doesn't think about Tom. I think it was not just his victories and his athleticism, it was his character and his playing to the cameras and his charm. He was a very charming man. He won the BBC Sports Personality of the Year in 1965 when there was no news about cycling. You had to have a huge character to transcend, break the deadlock of rugby and cricket and football in those days. So yeah, but he's remembered, I think, because he made an impression on many, many people and generations.
Campagnolo, the early record with the later one with the slots in it, actually. Quite a rare thing. These are the dual pivot record brakes. Work of art, these. Beautiful. So these, what we've got here is a selection of frame fit pumps where this sits on the frame and that sits under the top tube. These are the crashets I was on about earlier. The Raleigh, Italian, and they're the type of crashet that we used to race in the on that picture there. That's me wearing one there. So these are a different type, you know, they're a different model. Both made by Raleigh, which are Italian, but that's got the Italian flag on that one. They came in white, black, and various other colours. That's one with the Italian flag on as well. That's one of the old. Yep. That's a striped one there with the different colours. Look, yep. And you see some of the riders there, the white ones, black ones, different colour stripes. There's riders here with different colour ones. Look, yeah, there. That's a plain white one, and there the striped ones again. But these were before the hardshell helmets. If you look, all the professionals are riding them there, look. You could call me a hoarder, you could call me obsessive in what I collect. It's just, I think a lot of people have this thing about collecting stuff from the childhood, you know. I mean, we get people bring Raleigh Chopper bikes in for us to restore. Because as a kid, I mean, these guys are probably in the 40s now, or probably even 50, and they had one of these bikes when they were a kid, and it's almost trying to relive your childhood. But with me, I think it went a bit further. I did become obsessed by collecting stuff.
1980 Raleigh TI 753 Pro, full Shimano, group set, super record. But it has got the odd simplex levers, which some professionals preferred. The bike is original, apart from the saddle and the yellow bar tape. I bought it locally in Sheffield. It had the sort of normal 90s upgrade, Shimano 105 levers, but it is original paint. There isn't many left in original paint in this country. It's just a fantastic piece of kit. It was originally built by Jeff Francis in the marketplace in Doncaster. In the 80s, a number of local bike builders used the same frame builder. I haven't found out who it is yet, but I've got 2 or 3 bikes very similar. This is Shimano Golden Arrow group set, which is like the old version of the Shimano 105. Again, I haven't painted it, I won't paint it because it's such a nice original bike, and my best mate was his Saturday lad, and I just think I bought it because it's just, and I knew Jeff personally.
What makes you want to buy that particular bike?
I wouldn't say it's just the look of a bike. There's some I've been to look at, nah, it's not quite me. I like it either 100% original, or a lot of them I bought are from the original owners, which is nice because every bike has a story. Every bike, the original owners say, I chipped this, I caught that. That's when I came off here. And if I get a one owner bike which is like that, all right, I might put new tyres, tubes, cables, bar tape, but I won't alter it because it's just every scratch is a story, every dint's mark, and it's the story of a bike, and every bike's got history. And that's what it's about, the history of the bikes.
Well, it's a rather special bike actually. I mean, it's a Viking track bike built with modern components at the time, obviously, with the Campagnolo chain set and pedals, air-light wheels, white strip tyres, which were a bit special in the time. They were about £40 each tyre, even back in the 60s. Anyway, as a young schoolboy, at 14 I think I was, I rode a track meeting at Newcastle-under-Lyme in Staffordshire, and Beryl Burton was actually riding that very bike, and she won the Ladies National Pursuit Championship on it, but she also won a world title on that same bike. Errol Burton, what more can you say? An absolute incredible rider of the time. She was such a great time trialist, but a good road rider as well. And no doubt, if there'd have been a ladies' Tour de France back then, Beryl would have won that. I'm convinced about that.
I think success breeds success, really, and for Doncaster to generate itself as a cycling town because of its historic value. I'm only guessing and talking to older members of the clubs and things like that. When there were big, large factories, a lot of people cycled to work, they cycled home. In the case of some riders that I know of, everybody came out the factory gates at once and everybody wanted to race each other home. Some people had raced to work, some people had raced back from work. A lot of the mining communities and villages had their own welfare sections, and nearly a lot of the outlying mining villages had a shale velodrome circuit. So there was plenty of competitive cycling in 40s, 50s, 60s before the car came along and took precedence. So the success of them early days really has bred riders from Doncaster Borough to certainly step up to the mark, I think. There's the terrain that we've got, having flat roads, having roads towards the Derbyshire area, fantastic countryside. I think the competitiveness and the hotbed of cycling clubs, at one time there must have been 15 or 20 cycling clubs just within Doncaster Borough, has meant the competitive edge has really has grown and grown, and that still remains today.
I think it is part of, you know, the chain gangs, the group rides that we have around here, and obviously, you know, you got like the legends like John Tanner, like Wayne Randall, Kev Dawson. And then as I was a junior, I had the likes of Graham Briggs, Russ, Dean Downing, Tom Stewart, Ben Swift, my cousin. There's just a wealth of professionals really in and around the area. And when you're a young cyclist, you can kind of look up to them. And then I think also people just come into the sport, they're like, oh, how come there's so many pros around here, sort of thing. And they can get to ride with you as well, and it just creates a great atmosphere for the whole Doncaster area, really.
There's a really good structure of clubs around the Doncaster area. I think it breeds the good riders, you know what I mean? And we're all Yorkshire lads, so we don't mind working hard. Because there are a lot of good riders, it does tend to bring the other riders on, you know what I mean? Like I got, when I was young, people took me under the wing and helped me out. And I think it happens the same these days, you know what I mean? You'll see a rider that's up and coming and you'll point him in the right direction and it helps everybody out, you know what I mean? We've all done it, and that's why you tend to keep breeding the good riders, you know what I mean? Like Graham Briggs, he's one of the top guys now. I helped him out when he was a youngster, you know what I mean? When he was 17, he'd sit on back and you'd let him sit on back for a bit and then you'd tell him he had to do a turn up front, that sort of thing, you know what I mean? And it was a case of, okay, yeah, now it's time, you've got to put some groundwork in and then he'll improve. And yeah, he did same, and he's doing the same now with other young kids, you know what I mean? So it's, we all help each other out, you know what I mean? It's good.
There's so many guys in and around the area that have achieved so much on a bike, and yeah, to try and potentially get your name amongst them in the future, it'd be quite nice. And just for any other young cyclists that's coming up as well, to you know, then the stories be passed on to them as well. It just keeps on going and going further down the line, and it's just really encouraging, really.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what it is with this area. It breeds, you know, so many good riders. Like when I first started, there was John Tanner, Wayne Randall, Kev Dawson, Martin. He helped me out a lot. Martin Maltby from Don Valley Cycles. Yeah, and then you've got the likes of Russ, Dean Downing. They were all like riders that I looked up to when I was younger. And yeah.
We're the best in the world. We're the best. Great Britain's the best in the world. We're the #1. If you would have asked me that 15 years ago, I'd have broke several ribs laughing at you. But this is where we're at now, and we've got Tour of Yorkshire. We've got Worlds coming to Yorkshire. It's almost like we're almost now starting to take it for granted that this is the norm. And actually, for the younger riders, it is the norm. But for some of us that started in sort of 80s, if you actually think back, I was classed as a weird guy in mix because I wore a bit of lycra and rode around on a bike with shiny legs. Now, you can park your bike outside Tesco's and go shopping and nobody bats an eyelid at you. It's acceptable. In my day, if you'd gone into local shop in your cycling shorts and top, you'd have got laughed out at a shop. It's changed so much, but how good is it, the fact that we've got this race that all these thousands of people will watch year after year after year after year, and now we've got Worlds coming to Yorkshire. It's just crazy. It's I don't know, it's mad. That's the word for it, it's mad. In a good way.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. You know, we've had Tour of Yorkshire come here numerous times now, and the crowds that have come out to watch that, they're phenomenal. So to have the actual World Championships here, the biggest one-day event there is in the whole year for cycling, yeah, it'll be crazy. And I mean, hopefully it encourages a lot more people to get out on the bike, you know, to race the bike, and yeah, it's just going to be pretty mental, and I don't think we can compare it to anything that we've seen in the past.